Coming up on The Sporting Chef.
Today on the show, I'm going to make stuff out of ground game. Also on the show today, we have Susie, Willie, Stacy, Cee Dub, and Buddy. When you think of ground game, you normally think of venison or elk. That's kind of what we have a lot in our freezer. Assuming that you processed it yourself and it's nice and clean, any kind of game can be ground. It doesn't just have to be venison or elk or antelope. You can grind duck, you can grind goose, those late season conservation hunts where you've got a giant pile of snow goose. Take the breasts, remove the skin, grind the whole mess up, and you can use that for burger, for tacos, for anything else. So, I've got a duck burger here that I'm going to start with. This is ground duck meat. Ran it through the grinder. I'm just going to add some stuff to it. Got some seasoning here. Onion, egg yolk, that's going to help it bind together, as will this panko, some breadcrumbs. Now, whenever I grind any kind of game, I always add a little bit of fat to that. So to that duck, I added a little bit of pork fat, some jalapeno, a little Worcestershire, and a little flour, which will help bind it all together. It's not going to taste floury at all. It just kind of dries out the meat that's in there. And while I work on mixing this up, I want you to check out Susie Jimenez, my favorite gal from Carbondale, Colorado. Here's Susie.
I love to entertain a lot at home, and I know you guys do. So we are gonna make queso. And although this is not a very Mexican dish, I'm still gonna do it because everyone asks me all the time for this recipe. So I'm gonna start out with a little bit of olive oil in a very hot skillet. Gonna add your onions, jalapenos. You're gonna saute that till it's nice and golden brown. Once you start seeing your onions jump out of the skillet, you know it's ready, right? So we got the jalapenos, the onions, and we're gonna add a little bit of white wine to that. Michael David makes an amazing Sauvignon Blanc, and the best part about this is you're gonna deglaze, which means you're gonna pull out all the flavors out of this, and you're gonna take a little slip. Or a big one. Okay, so we're gonna cook this down. We're gonna add our cheese. Melt it down really good. You can see this is a really fast dish. To add more juice to that, we're gonna add tomatoes. And we have antelope. Now, if you see that it's starting to clump up like this, guess what? More wine. It's totally good. And it's gonna cook off, so you don't have to worry about the kids, drinking and eating and all that good stuff, So you can see how nice this is. And you're just gonna serve this with chips. You can put nacho bar out, whatever you guys want. So this is gonna definitely be spicy and delicious. There you go, guys. That took nothing, right? So now next time you know that this is something you can put together last minute, and everybody's gonna be happy.
How great is Susie, right? Every show, Susie, right here on The Sporting Chef. Now I've got my ground duck here that I'm gonna make some ground duck burgers into. One of the things with the High Mountain seasoning, they have a burger seasoning with a whole bunch of different flavors, and it's meant to be used with ground meat while you're grinding it up for flavor. And as I mentioned, I do add fat to my burger. A lot of people, they're just fine with lean game meat, but I don't know. I like it better with a little fat. I like the juicy burger like on the commercial where it runs down your face. And now a word about burger safety. I've found that since the E. coli outbreaks here and there that have made national news, that it's really hard to get a medium rare burger. I'll go to a restaurant and I'll say, hey, will you cook a medium rare burger? Because it's my choice. And they say, sure, we'll cook you a medium rare burger. But then it still comes in well done. How you cook your burger is entirely your business. If you want to be safe, you want to cook it to 160 degrees for a couple of minutes. It'll be cooked all the way through. It'll be medium wellish. I like mine about 135 degree internal temperature so that there's still a little bit of juice in there. Now next up is a little thing we like to call chef notes. As we travel around the country with the Sporting Chef crew, we meet with some very engaging and informative chefs. These are the highlights, but if you want the longer version and to go a little deeper and get more information, check it out on the sportingchef.com website where you can see more about chef notes. Thomas, we spent some time here at Fire and Spice, and you prepared this really, really delicious, tender duck confit with a duck leg. Would you serve it like this, or would you do something else with it?
I would probably shred it and put it in a taco.
With your audience, you know, you had mentioned, I know, ceviche. You had ceviche on the food truck. How'd that go?
Not great. It's a hard sell when somebody doesn't know what it is.
How do you decide what's going to go on the menu?
Well, that's where the food truck really came in handy, because a lot of our menu items actually came from either a joke or putting it on as a special, and it really took off.
You do carnitas here, right?
We do.
What do you call them?
Pulled pork, because we're in Alabama and we kind of have to. They're made the same way as regular carnitas would be made.
What's one of the most unusual questions you've had asked?
Whether our brisket is pork or beef. And I can tell you it's going to be beef every time.
This is staring at me. So, see ya. You know, if you're going to grind something, you might as well make something good. Up next, Willie, Stacy, Cee Dub, and Buddy T. Welcome back to The Sporting Chef. I'm Scott Leysath, and I'm doing stuff with ground fish and game today. Those of us who process our own game can be a little bit pickier about it. When you go to the processor, one of the things that I hear all the time is, and I've mentioned it on the show ad nauseum, is I want you to save the loins and the tenderloins, and everything else, I want you to turn it into burger. Save some of it for soups and stews. I have a flat top griddle here. It's hot, and it's probably about, say, medium-low temperature. If you were doing this in a skillet at home, about 300 degrees or so. That's going to be my duck burger. Next up, one of our favorite chefs from San Diego. Here's Willie cooking from Catalina Offshore Products.
So today, we're going to do a little bit of spot prawn crudo. So we got those. We're going to leave those raw. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take these shiitake mushrooms. We're going to put them on the grill. Just a little bit of butter. This is a high-fat content European-style butter. We're just going to take some of the butter. We're going to place the mushroom just right down in front of it. And that butter is going to slowly melt down. We're going to do the same thing with these yellow beets right here. We boil these yellow beets about 45 minutes until they're soft. We're just going to place those right next to these guys right here. And while those are roasting up, we're actually going to get these guys ready. The best way to do this, I found, is you get right under, right where their gills are. He's going to kick a little bit, so you want to hold on strong. And you're going to lift his head off. Just like that. I like to save the liver. It's really good. It's kind of like its own sauce at that point. And then we're going to take this. This is a red beet puree. We put a little bit of lemon juice in it, some salt. That's just about it. We're going to dry it on the plate. Come over here and we're going to flip our mushrooms. So you just want to peel these as carefully as possible. And we're going to peel right on his gills. Stick a thumb under it and just kind of lift. That way you get as much meat as possible. A lot of people miss all this meat up here when they're cooking them or they're removing them. And we're just going to place them around on the plate. And I actually like to come back, scoop that out. You don't want to waste any part of these guys. Get out as much as we can out of them. We're going to take this Meyer lemon here and barely cut off any. You don't need a lot of the juice from this stuff. Couple drops on each one. And get our mushrooms. And we're gonna get our beets also. And we're gonna do the same thing with these guys, and we're just gonna place them around. I'm gonna take this jalapeno, leave them raw, trying to keep the slices as small. Dime size, right there. We're gonna take this mint. You want to use, again, the smaller leaves. Place those around. This here, some really nice mulled-on sea salt. Gives them a little bit of that salinity you're looking for. Place a little bit of that around. And finally, this is a dehydrated beet top powder. We don't really want to waste anything from the plant as long as it's edible and delicious. I'm just going to sprinkle that. That's our beet, spot prawn, shiitake mushroom plate. Really simple. Nice clean flavors on it.
Next up, a fish burger using either ground or just chopped up fish. Now, if you go to the sportingchef.com website, this recipe says tuna burger. I'm making it with salmon just to show you that really this works with any kind of dark fleshed oily fish like salmon or tuna. I got some chopped up salmon there. This is jalapeno, garlic, onion. Dump and go. This is a 1 beaten egg. I've got some seasoning here. Some more of the breadcrumbs to help bind it all together along with that egg. Another binder is mayo. I'm gonna make this spicy with some sriracha. And I'll start with a spoon, but I'm gonna end up having to use my hands. And while Stacy Harris is showing you what she does, I'm gonna turn these into patties. Stacy has become very popular. We may not be able to keep her here much longer. So while she's still with us, here's Stacy.
Fish stock is super easy to make, and it's gonna be better than anything you're gonna find in the stores. I promise you that. And it only takes about 30 to 45 minutes to make. The first thing you're gonna do is just use the scraps of any white fish and put it into a little bit of boiling water. Now, you normally use a lot more than this, but I'm just needing a little bit. I'm just gonna have a little soup for myself. Okay, the next thing you're gonna do is just put an onion, and you can put peel in there, you can put the stems, everything. Just chunk it in, okay? I'm gonna just take a little bit of thyme and a little bit of parsley. I'm gonna put that in. Take some celery, cut it up just a little bit, put it in. Same thing with your garlic, just throw it in. I like a lot of garlic, you may not. And then carrots. I'm gonna put a little bit of wine. I feel like this really gives the stock a lot of flavor. Okay, and then I'm gonna just simmer it. After you let this simmer for about 35 to 40 minutes, put it through a colander, season it with a little bit of salt, and you've got perfect fish stock.
Get a glass of something good, and Cee Dub, Buddy, and I will meet you back here in a minute or two. Welcome back to the Sporting Chef Show. I'm doing stuff with ground fish and game today. I've got duck burgers, I've got salmon burgers, and now I'm going to make venison lettuce wraps. On the same flat top grill, let's start by getting meat browned. Ground venison, mushrooms, a little pickled ginger. So when you go to a restaurant and you get the lettuce wraps, lettuce cups, what very often happens is they don't give you enough lettuce. And when you go to the grocery store, I've mentioned this on the show before, don't look for the real heavy iceberg heads of lettuce. You can also use butter leaf. If you find that you're fighting it all the time, you can also use cabbage. But you want to use the lighter head that's really loose so that you can pull the leaves apart easily. Just take the core off, and then you can start separating these leaves thusly. I use scissors just to trim them up and make them look a little prettier. It's not really necessary. Whatever you want to use, romaine, all that. What this does is you've got the hot, spicy, whatever, the ground stuff on the inside, and you've got the nice crunchy lettuce on the outside. Okay, almost 3 down. Next up is Cee Dub. Cee Dub is one of my favorite people in the universe. Powerlesscooking.com is his website. He's all over the country doing seminars, but we've got him right here on the Sporting Chef Show today.
Here in Idaho and Oregon, we grow a lot of onions, and there's nothing I would rather eat than onions on a burger, in a stew, wherever. Onions go with everything, but most people don't think of really doing an onion as a vegetable side dish, and I've even made this with small onions as an appetizer. But what we're gonna do, I've got some onions here, and they're all cut, and then we're gonna put a little basil, or a little pesto on there, some olive oil, salt and pepper, and some Parmesan cheese. Let's drizzle a little bit of olive oil over everything. And so I just want a little dab of pesto right there on top of each onion. Okay, a little salt and pepper and some Parmesan cheese, and we're gonna add a little chicken broth or beef broth just for a little bit of liquid in here. We might as well just use it all. You can get by with a little bit less. We just want some liquid in there so things will steam. So it's off to the fire pan and some hot briquettes. Our baked onions, the Dutch oven is in the fire pan, the briquettes are on and underneath. And about 30 minutes, we're gonna start smelling the pesto, and we'll have Dutch oven baked onions with pesto and olive oil. So let's see what they look like. Oh, there we go, and you can see how the pesto is kind of crusted up on top, and they've all spread out a little bit. There's a baked onion.
Now, I may not have mentioned that Cee Dub also has a ton of great cookbooks. Over here, I've got the venison, mushroom, onion, whatever else we threw in there. I'm gonna add to that water chestnuts, a little bit of sesame oil, and a little bit of sesame oil goes a long way. There's some soy sauce. This is the high salt soy sauce. This is some vinegar, sriracha, and this is just about done. I'm just gonna heat it up, make sure it's heated all the way through. Now for these salmon burgers, I'm gonna make a little sauce. And this is something that I keep in a little squeeze bottle at my house all the time. This is mayonnaise, cilantro, lime juice, some sugar, and the sugar kind of balances that acidic lime juice. I'll throw in a little bit of green onion in there also, and then you can decide whether you like it more limey or a little bit sweet. Cilantro lime mayo, and that recipe, as incredibly complicated as it is, can also be found on the sportingchef.com website. All right, we're close. Burgers are just about done. And while I tidy up and finish up, I want you to check out our regular redneck from the Redneck Riviera, Buddy T.
Just got through having Mardi Gras, and I was down in Mexico at Carnival, and I kind of flashed back to my younger days in New Orleans, and I got to missing that muffalata. Spell that M-U-F-F-alata. This here is that Italian mixed vegetables, and I added black and green olives to it, some lemon juice, some garlic salt, and olive oil. Threw in a couple of extra pepperoncinis. Because everybody wants to put that on a muffalata bread. Well, on the Redneck Riviera, they don't know what a muffalata bread is. So I got some French bread with herb, garlic, topping. Only people in New Orleans and everywhere else that's eating that stuff said, what the heck's he doing putting Axis deer on there? We are gonna put mozzarella on it and provolone cheese. That's kind of uppity for this area to have provolone, but we managed to get some. You're gonna put that thing together like that. We got a cast iron skillet with all them ribs, so we got nice little grill marks on here. And I tell you what, it's a lot cheaper to make this at your house than to go to New Orleans for one. And you ain't gonna know the difference if you ain't ever ate one of them from New Orleans anyway.
3 of my favorite things to do with ground fish and game, next up on The Sporting Chef. And now for the part we like to call the beauty shot, where we show you what food looks like on the plate. All right, starting with the salmon burger with the cilantro lime mayo. Any kind of fish works great, but I prefer to do it with salmon or tuna, the darker, oily, fleshed fish. Venison lettuce wraps. I like to put a little sriracha on mine. The duck burger, got a little melted cheese on here. Thanks to everyone who was on the show from San Diego, Colorado, Alabama, Idaho, and Texas. We got all of those states covered today, including right here on one of our Sporting Chef sets. Please support our sponsors that keep us on the air. We've got Camp Chef, Weston, High Mountain, Work Sharp, Orion. They're all here, and they all make it possible. And of course, don't forget the Dead Meat TV show, where we cook the fish and game, less eaten, less traveled. I'm Scott Leysath, the Sporting Chef. See you next time.